A very good morning, everybody. Sabah al khair. It's nice to see you all. Welcome to the third fantastic day of FII, the 7th edition. We have a very important topic to discuss here today, and I have two esteemed guests to tell me all about the world of crypto. But in particular, as we look at the ascent of blockchain and cryptocurrencies and the massive impact that they've had on finance and investment, how do we bridge that next frontier, not least democratizing crypto for the greater good? Well, we're here to shed light on those issues and much more. I'm delighted to say that to my left is Cathryn Chen. She is the founder and general partner for MarketX Ventures. A very warm welcome to you. Great to see you.
Thank you. Very nice.
And Adam is also joining us. Adam Reed's the co-founder and CEO of Ledn. So thank you so much for being here too.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Firstly, how are you enjoying FII so far?
It's been fantastic.
Lots of interesting people, interesting conversations.
The best 2 days of this year.
Tell me a bit about what you do. It's been a rocky road, if we can put it mildly, for crypto over the last couple of years. Talk to me about your company and how volumes have been in 2023 and looking ahead to 24.
Sure. So first of all, I just want to explain a little bit about our background. We started out as actually a fintech platform called MarketX, and we were the first cross-border pre-IPO secondary trading platform between US and China. And in the last few years, I would say tokenizing real assets has really taken off. We created a entity called Infinity, which basically helps tokenize pre-IPO shares as a start, and down the road we will tokenize other real assets such as real estate. But to talk about the last year or so, a lot of people refer to as the crypto winter. We'll see how long this one lasts. But overall, I do see the need for more investing in more safe assets, and I think we can start with private equity, understanding that you're investing in companies that will grow, they will exit. This is not so-called shit coins out there. So I think there are probably going to be more demand from the retail market when it comes to products that actually represent real companies.
Thank you. Adam, let me come to you. You started your company in a bear market. Guess what? You're now in a bear market too. In terms of volumes, how has the year been?
Yeah, that's right, Rebecca. We've really come full cycle. So we started Ledn in 2018, really on the premise that Bitcoin allowed us to create equal financial services across the globe. So we launched Canada's first Bitcoin-backed loan in 2018 and then broadened that out to other financial services. To give a sense of scale, in 2021, we had about $2 billion of a $40 billion market size in the institutional space for digital asset lending. And that's one side of the business. And on the other side of the business, we were doing, up to that point, we had done about 600 million of retail Bitcoin-backed loans. And I'd say, kind of bringing it back today, again, coming full cycle in and out, we're seeing pretty level volumes on the lending side, because that's a product that you need in any market on the retail lending side. Just similar to residential mortgages, you're still going to need that type of financing regardless of the housing prices. There's still some demand for that piece. But in the institutional side, it's driven a lot by retail trading volumes. And so because of that, the institutional lending volumes are down substantially. I would say down about 90% of where we were in 2021 at the peak. So,
in the wake of recent events over the past year, I suppose trust should be central to this conversation. Where do we go from here, and how do digital asset lenders really foster a sense of transparency and communication, due diligence? How would you say that is best achieved?
I think overall we noticed that definitely in the last couple of years, a lot has gone wrong. So first of all, just to make sure that you are honest with your clients and making sure ethical behavior across the board. I think overall, we believe that we have built over 10 years a track record working with clients, both on the institutional side, family office side, also retail side. So we have an existing brand that people have known about. And because of that, we work with a lot of extensive partnerships as well. Folks that are running other exchanges, or people have been coming from the traditional side, but now they can offer this new product as an add-on product to their existing line. So if you want to invest through fiat currency, great. If you want to invest with USDC, USDT, that's also an option. So for a lot of the traditional players, this is almost like a cherry on top. You can offer something that perhaps some of your clients are curious about. So we're working with very existing players that have already a large trustworthy network. So with that, offering private equity, VC as a class, as a tokenized format becomes more and more palatable.
In terms of palatable for a retail investor and also an institutional one, regulation is what we like. Get those rules and regs in place so we know the boundaries, the parameters perhaps. Is it a case, and I could be wrong, but in terms of crypto in particular, are we almost teaching the regulators how to regulate? I mean, you're very familiar with the SEC, for the right reasons, I should say, not the wrong
Yes.
ones. But in terms of teaching them how to regulate properly, where are we at?
Yeah, so I think number one thing to remember is this is a whole new world for a lot of people, right? And when we first got started in 2014, very few people even know what crypto was or blockchain. We had to explain, we're building a private chain, we're keeping, transparency, authenticity of the shares. There's a real reason for using blockchain in the pre-IPO market. We had to, first of all, explain to a lot of different folks, in the SEC side of things, we were actually applying to be a broker-dealer. So the first year, we spent a couple $1 million just to explain to them what we were doing. There was, cross-border, there was blockchain, there's just so many red flags going off right away. So thank God we had our general counsel who used to be part of the securities world, K&L Gates, worked at FINRA, worked at SEC. So we had to really explain. But however, as you know right now in the US, it's just impossible. So for the other side of the business, we're completely out of the US. We're been working with FEMA in Switzerland and also in the Bahamas. They're just more familiar with what's going on. But even with them, we had to really sit down with the regulators and almost on a weekly basis, meet with them, sit down with them and explain how each part of the business works, right? We have the traditional private equity business, which is very similar to any asset manager out there. However, on the technology side, we had to explain to them what are, Uniswap, right? What is Uniswap doing? UniV3, we're leveraging the back end of UniV4. And they're like, what are you talking about? Well, these technology didn't exist a few years ago, right? So we had to really work on what exactly does smart contract, this whole new technology work, and how does that translate into, modernizing financial services. So those are definitely some very valuable lessons we have learned over the last few years, and we hope, continually working with different governments around the world.
Speaking of which, Saudi, what do we think of the market here? What is your interest in Saudi?
Yeah, I think when we go to a new region, we're trying to figure out where the best place to launch is. And I think what's interesting about this space is the technology works everywhere. The marketing has to be localized, but the regulation does not, right? And so what you see is currently a patchwork of what's happening across the globe, and regions that are getting that right and setting themselves up as really innovation centers. And then the jurisdictions that are doing that, the companies are flocking to there, which is very different, right? If you go back, hundreds of years, what used to happen in the colonial days is a government would conquer a new area, and then private enterprise would flow in. Now it's flipped. The governments that get that right, the private enterprises can't go anywhere, so they're coming there first. I think that's an interesting change with what's happening with technology these days.
Talk to me about closing the financial inclusion gap and how crypto can really play an important part, not least in underserved markets and emerging economies.
Yeah, Bitcoin, it's the same everywhere. So that's an incredible piece. I don't think there's any other asset that has that same attributes. Even gold, which it gets compared to a lot, is jurisdictional in that if I hold gold in a vault in, say, Venezuela, it would be higher risk than holding vault in, say, the Bank of England. And so that's what's interesting about Bitcoin is because it doesn't really physically sit anywhere, you can use this asset to provide equal financial services across the globe. So for a company like Ledn, we're providing the same rates in terms of service in a market like Colombia as we are where we created the business initially, Canada. So there's this really interesting equalization that's happening and a fairness point that really enjoy in building the business.
Cathryn, would you agree there's huge potential there?
100%. So we started out actually thinking about who our ultimate customers are. And I always like to use my parents as an example. They're doctors. They're smart, but they don't make the best financial decisions. I always wondered, when my family comes to me and be like, oh, what is the newest stock? Is Bitcoin the newest stock? I was like, please stop right there, right? So I think there definitely is a way for us to find ways to educate the masses about new technology. And this just happens to be one way where you can explain to people, in a very simple format, what financial inclusion is like. So for example, when we first started, in the US, we have the accredited investor rule. As you know, you're either worth over $1 million or you have to have, 250K or 300 a year. A lot of people don't qualify for that. And, in the normal world, you just tell these people, go away, right? Don't participate in alternative investing where, besides the S&P and also right now with our treasury, it's like 4 or 5% are already pretty good. You can now participate in deals that make hopefully, double-digit returns. So with that, how do you actually make it easy and also accessible for the masses? Well, now you can buy a share of a token that represents fractional ownership of a pre-IPO company. So to give you a sense, we have obviously seen companies like SpaceX, being one of the most well-known pre-IPO companies. And how do you own SpaceX previously? Impossible. Right? Unless you're somewhat of a millionaire or billionaire, it's impossible. But now people can even bet on what is the outcome of these stocks. It's either yes or no. So besides just actually buying shares, they can now do betting on whether these stocks are going to go up or down using crypto. So that's a definitely new innovation that's happening in the market, and we hope to be the first one bring this to reality. And instead of having someone signing a 30-page, 60-page PPM, I think a lot of people here understand, but generally, how do you explain to my mom what is a PPM? So, now they can just buy a token that represents that, which is a lot easier. So I think that's going to really increase the transferability and also understanding for this new pre-IPO market.
Okay, a whole new world. Talk to me about the potential timeline of the expiration date, if we can call it that, of traditional finance and also decentralized finance. When do we see that coming to fruition?
Yeah, so I think what's interesting is we really need to think about the crypto industry as enabling tools, right? And I think what TradFi can do is, I don't really see it disappearing and being one to the other, is even though money is a commodity, the service around it needs an important human aspect. And what we're finding with our client base is they really enjoy the terms of service. So Ledn is a centralized service, similar to how a traditional financial institution provides a human aspect of level of service. That's really important in that clients want to interact and understand and have it explained to them in their terms. So I think what we'll see is traditional finance adapting the tools that decentralized finance has created and bringing it in that way.
Okay.
Yeah, I definitely think that there's no expiration date. However, I do think the convergence is going to happen in a very interesting way. So for example, last couple of years when you go to ECC, which is one of the largest, crypto-related conferences, you see a lot of traditional players, really adopting, as you can tell, the spot ETF. Right now what's going on with, Grayscale, right? This is all new adoption of crypto in the traditional institutional world. However, there's a lot of setbacks, and the SEC is obviously playing an important role in that as well. So, a lot of the traditional players really cannot do much unless there's top-down level understanding what's going to happen. When it comes to certain parts of the world, of course, right? This part of the world, for example, regarding the last question, I think we see a lot more progress coming out of this part of the world from the top down, understanding, okay, can we do this? What can we do with large players who actually have a huge audience and influence the decision making for many of the, larger whale players, for example? That is honestly, I think, a very important adoption curve that we need to go through. So now we have companies like Layer 0, ZK Sync. They're now really making progress on understanding what can we do. So for example, one of the largest partnerships they're doing is actually with gaming companies, with folks like Walmart. Now you can buy a toy, and that toy has the digital footprint of your life already. So that is what I call institutional adoption in a way too, right? So you can work with some of the largest B2B players and implement parts of crypto in everyday life besides just trading, but you can actually create a digital footprint of your life, starting from young kids, right, 5, 6-year-olds. So that to me is a really big adoption change that we foresee hopefully in the next few years.
And you would say that Saudi is not just well positioned, but ready to capitalize on those kind of opportunities too.
From what I can see from the top leadership, they're definitely very, very excited about this. I believe last year when I was at FII, I heard, we're looking to bring 3,000 Ethereum developers to Jeddah, KAUST, Kingdom Saudi University, which is very exciting. I don't know how many Ethereum developers there are in the world, but that's definitely a big number. So, I think the country is very much embracing new technology, seeing how they can be implemented in other parts of the world, and hopefully that's going to bring more change across the board.
Let this be their new home, their new hub. Let's talk about stable coins. Of course, the cryptocurrencies whose value is pegged to other currencies or commodities or financial instruments. The rise has been remarkable. So talk to me about the impact and also the appetite from the retail and the institutional investor.
Yeah, I think it's been interesting that the adoption we've seen. So really, stablecoins, the most prevalent being U.S. dollar-based, have allowed different individuals to purchase effectively U.S. dollars in regions with lower friction. So in a market like Ledn, which is one of the largest areas that we service, we see a huge premise to purchase USD, whether it's being Tether or USDC, massive adoption in that front and lowering the friction on that. I think what's interesting is the clients that we service, they're a little bit, again, agnostic to the technology. And for them, it's cost and access. So we see clients going towards the lowest cost chains versus participating on maybe Ethereum, which has higher costs today. So I think, again, you're seeing what you're really servicing what clients want, which is US dollars in the lowest cost and least friction way. The other piece, just touching on the regulation of that, is we've seen some massive failures in stablecoins, but again, it's important to understand the details. In that when the Terra Luna situation happened, that was an algorithmic stablecoin, in that it wasn't pegged with traditional dollars behind it, held one-to-one. It had some math behind it as far as how the stablecoin was set up. So this is back to the educational aspect of it, is the regulation and governments are nervous as they see different blowups happen, but as they get to understand on it, it's not as scary because it's really pretty simple stuff. A basic stablecoin, you're taking some dollars, putting it in a traditional bank account, and just making ease of access a lot more frictionless. So I think that's the piece, is helping governments and regulators understand what this technology can do and how it can help all of their citizens provide lower friction access.
Much potential, but much work to be done, groundwork laid indeed.
Yeah, definitely. And also to add to that, we definitely also employ stable coins. So for example, one can use their USDC or USDT to buy an Infinity token that represents shares of pre-IPO company. But with that, a lot of people don't want to actually convert that back to fiat. They actually just want to hold USDC, right? So given that these are the highest, liquidity type of tokens, it's actually increasing the actual liquidity option for the pre-IPO shares, because previously, when you buy SpaceX, you have to wait for IPO or find another buyer, LP interest transfer, which is very complicated. But now you can just hold USDC or USDT forever. So that creates, you can transfer it to another person who's also holding the same type of coin, but the back end is Infinity token that represents that. So I think that's going to open a lot of doors and making it easier for people to understand how to buy alternatives with, tokenized format.
One more thing, if I can just add on stablecoins, just to show you the premise, is right now 70% of the transacted value on blockchains is stablecoins.
That's right.
To show you that there's less speculation that people think, and that people are using stablecoins to lower their access and again access something that is lower cost for them. So it's been interesting.
Well, it seems to come back to a lot of the time in our conversation is demystifying the process, be it investing or even understanding the products available. Do we need to improve literacy on every level when it comes to crypto, to stablecoins, to the markets in general, to debunk some of the myths and misconceptions out there? Because there are plenty, aren't there? And surely that has to be prohibitive to retail and institutional investment.
Yeah, look, we consider our whole marketing education, and it's a big issue with financial inclusion, is explaining when we have clients take loans, what does that mean? What's been interesting is for most of our clients in Ledn, the first time they interact with us may be the first time they've actually been approved for a loan. So this is amazing. It gives you a massive self-esteem gain when this happens, but also you have to make sure they know what they're buying. And so that's the piece that is key, is providing it in their own language, first off, and something that they can read and absorb, and making sure they do understand the full aspects of what they're transacting with.
Cathryn, I know you're passionate about this, not least with your parents, but how do we spread the message to the masses?
Yeah, definitely. So I like to use the word edutainment, so education plus entertainment. I realized that, when for someone who has very little financial understanding of how alternatives works, if you just explain to them in the most traditional format, after 4 hours of me giving roadshows around the world, I realized this is really not the way to go. You have to break it down, right? Like, how do you think about investing in a way? I like to refer to Hassan Minhaj, with what he's doing about student loans. How can you make it so easily digestible for the average masses? That's the key to success. So about 7 years ago, we started this TV show kind of channel that talks about, entertainment in a way that we follow the founders. How did they create their entrepreneurial journey? How do they become who they are? And we created almost like a Shark Tank-like show that shows, this is how it's like being a family office, investing in, alternatives, investing in blockchain. And that itself is our way of embracing the audience. I was inspired by the idea of back in the day, when you watch a lot of these like reality TV shows, how do they think about American Idol, right? You got to embrace this through media. So now we're partnering up with media companies. Funny enough, we're also investors in TikTok, ByteDance, but now we're actually leveraging that to create more of an inclusive audience. Anybody who's watching TikTok, YouTube, they can find us, right? That is
one of the biggest educational
Exactly.
platforms,
Surprisingly,
right?
I mean, if you look at how many TikTok influencers today that are talking about financial services, it's quite, honestly, I was very shocked to see tens of millions of followers talking about financial advice on TikTok.
Yeah.
And obviously there's Instagram as well. There's Threads, Facebook, Meta caught up as well, Twitter. So I think today, if you're a financial services company that do not have a social media, handle of this, you're probably missing out.
Yes, you're late to the party in every way. Small, digestible, bite-sized pieces of information is always good. We know that the good, the potential of crypto is phenomenal, the untapped potential to democratize, not least. But in terms of disruption, and on the negative side, in terms of unemployment, what are we looking at present? What's the context, and how do you foresee that playing out in the years to come?
I don't think personally, in terms of crypto, how that's going to affecting employment. I actually see more and more people actually embracing this because how simple it is, right? For some people, it's just opening up your wallet, and now 2 clicks, it's done. Sure, we still have to KYC. Actually, that's the traditional finance part that we're bringing to the more, degen world, I guess. Because we come from traditional finance, we understand how it's like to operate a traditional broker-dealer, how to operate a registered investment advisor. So we bring that knowledge to the market. But when we see the type of talents, people who are embracing it, we've seen crypto being used in now, like I mentioned, you can buy toys with it. You can actually go to certain parts of the world where this is the only way for you to transact. I mean, with what's going on in the world right now, it's very sad, but many of the refugee camps are using blockchain as the only way to transfer money, right? So we see there's a real humanitarian side of embracing blockchain technology, crypto, in parts of the world. For example, in parts of Central Asia, we see that this is the only way for certain, nonprofit groups to actually bring aid to parts of the world. And that itself is quite interesting. Granted, the downside of it, some of the groups, obviously the largest hacks happened in the last few years, from North Korea. To give you a sense how scary that is, we were interviewing a couple employees, and someone who applied using a fake identity, saying that he's from certain parts of the world, clearly based on their accent, based on where the story goes, you can tell this possibly could be a North Korean spy. So we have encountered issues like that, and we realize that obviously if this technology ends up in the hands of the wrong people, of course this could be a huge problem, which is why now we do have companies like Chainalysis, which is a company that uses data to tell where the money is going. So for example, a couple years back, there was one of the largest hack over $1 billion. Chainalysis was able to track down who stole the money, where did that money go. So now there's actually modern technology that helps you really fighting the hackers of the world. So I am personally much more confident and positive about the outlook.
And what a perfect note to end on, and keeping humanity at the heart of our conversation. Thank you so much for being here this morning and sharing your insights. Ladies and gentlemen, my guests.
Thank you very much for having us.
Thank you.